Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Amy Bryant, and I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia at Wild Child Counseling. And I'm also online at Parenting Beyond Punishment, which is a support and education group on Facebook. And I'm here today with Lori Petro of Teach Through Love. And we're really here to answer your questions. So if you're here with us live, please post your questions in the Q&A box and we will get to them. We're also going to just give a review about what we've learned in the past 10 days during this peaceful parenting event, the NoSpank Challenge, and talk a little bit about developmentally appropriate expectations, because I think that that can really set the stage for success for everybody. So, Lori, thank you for being here as always.
Yes, I'm glad to be back. Wrapping it up today.
Wrapping it up today. I know, it's so exciting, and it's hard to believe that it's already been 10 days, but here we go.
Goes fast.
It does. So if you've been in this event, we have had 10 days of learning. And so my hope is that you feel more empowered, both by knowing what your long-term goals are, which we talked about with Dr. Joan Durant, and also empowered to recognize your triggers and learn to get emotionally regulated, or at least have the tool to begin that process and to get support. And then also, we talked about a lot of tools to help children get regulated through movement and breath work and by co-regulating with us, which of course comes right back to us. As most parenting does, it is mostly about us getting regulated and getting our feet on solid ground. Today we're going to talk about the conscious communication cards a little bit, mostly as a review, because they're such an amazing support. So Lori has created these cards, and Lori, I know you say that they're not scripts,
Yeah.
but I am always promoting them as this is a great place to start as you're getting your voice and learning how to support your child and to address their stress and to teach them skills. And those are the three main parts of those cards. And I just think that they're amazing.
Oh, did you hear that?
I didn't hear it.
It's like crazy tunnel sounds in my blast of loudness in my ear.
Some reverb or something?
That was weird.
Okay.
That was weird. Woo! Totally. Oh, scripts. Yes. So they're not scripts, but they do help us, as I think we said on Tuesday, train our brain to start thinking in new ways so that suddenly our responses really do become easier to access.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to do, like what you said, we have to really practice our own self-regulation, because when we're not regulated, then our that thinking brain will shut down, and we really can't expect to come up with conscious communication in that place. So I think any of the webinars this week that people can go and watch the recordings that help them become more mindful, I think that's really a first step before we can implement language.
Yes.
That helps.
Yes, for sure.
And
I do think it's true that as we get the language in our brains, it becomes more automatic and easier to access. Sheena says she would love some cards for teens. And I think that some of these cards can be for teens. But maybe if you want to share some scenarios, Sheena, maybe Lori and I could speak to those in a little bit.
Yeah, maybe just some examples of teen situations, and we could kind of give examples. There's definitely so many ideas I have for making decks for teens and for teachers, and
yes.
and that there's many of those plans are in the works, especially our teacher plan right now. I think, and I would love to hear from people that either want more of the cards or have ideas, because the hard part is coming up with scenarios that are so different from the first deck that they make a new complete deck. Because for me, I find that so many of the situations can apply, whether we're talking to a little child or an older child. We can definitely, we just look at those directions where it says notice and name without judgment, name what we see without
Yes.
judgment. So things like that we can just apply if the words don't exactly match. So I would love, yes, Sheena, I would love to talk to you then, or even just send me an email. If not, we can talk about some here too. But I do need more, I think. I want more scenarios to make these really effective, because I don't want to say the same thing over and over again too either, because then it becomes like, oh, well, why are these helpful or different? And with teens, with younger kids, we might be helping them regulate right away. But with teens, I think we find that we're working more on connection and skill building. I mean, not that teens don't get upset, but sometimes they've got a handle on that, and it's that our relationship is a place where we need to work. So the support cards and the skill building cards, I think, can really apply to our teens. But I think Beth has written something did she have a question, or was she sharing?
She says that she's come to this to learn and appreciation of what we are doing. Thank you, Beth. Beth says, I'm the parent and grandparent of kids who struggled with challenging behavior and who had several mental health labels: bipolar, schizoaffective, ADHD, ODD, anxiety, autism. Beth says, I've just retired from 19 years in the state office for early intervention for infants and toddlers, and I'm fired up with a passion to make this information systematically and routinely available to all parents, beginning when kids are born. She says, I could go on and on, but I'll stop there.
I love it.
I
We
do
could
too.
go on and on with you, Beth,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes, we are fired up too, and that's exactly why we do this.
Yeah.
We want it to be accessible, and this is the one, there's lots of ways to make things accessible, and not everybody has internet access, but this is exactly, one way that we've found to try and make it accessible. So thank you, Beth. So let's see.
So
go ahead.
We have an example here,
Okay.
teen example. So my teen, Sheena sent in this example. My teen may say, I don't want to join the family holiday celebration. And I say, you don't have to, but it hurts my feelings. Do you want to start with that one, Amy? And then I can add on.
I think it's a good one. I always think it's important to speak to the emotion underneath what the child is saying, whether the child is 3 or 7 or 17. And so I would want to be really curious when anyone says, I don't want to join the family holiday celebration. I would want to get really curious. Oh, you don't want to go? I would really like to know more about that. I would want to know why she doesn't want to go. What's coming up for her? Is she experiencing anxiety? Does she have fears around it? I would also, and then so you say, you don't have to go, but it hurts my feelings. I would also say, I feel sad thinking about you not coming. Okay, so she says it's a religious celebration and she doesn't believe in God. And that can be really difficult for parents too. And I think...
but it gives you that bridge to connection because you already know what the challenge is.
Yeah.
So validating that for a child. I would steer away from saying it hurts my feelings. I love what you said, Amy, about acknowledging the child's feelings, and sharing that. What did you say about thinking about how you would feel missing the child at this event? I think that's a great way to share your feelings. But it hurts my feelings may accidentally make the child feel like they have some responsibility around your feelings, and we can't put that on our kids. We have to own our feelings in that way. So, but we still want to share that. I feel sad thinking that you won't be there with the family to share this experience. And I really understand that it's important to you to stand your ground about your feelings about religion. Where do we go from here? Do you have some ideas here are my thoughts. Maybe you have an idea on a compromise, but asking the child what they might like to happen next after we do this, I think that's going to open up. So here's the thing. We're not looking for like a solution to get the child to the event as much as we are looking to open the conversation. Yes. So that we can keep having conversations. Because the moment we try to force or convince or use, the blame, shame, judgment, or guilt, we shut down that connection to them being open to what we have to say in the next situation or later. It just becomes, well, you didn't really listen to me, so I really don't want to invest. Even it's not even that I won't listen to you, it's just I don't want to invest. That becomes the basis of the relationship when we try to force there.
Right. She says too that family members say you owe it to your mom to be here, and she says, but I don't agree. And I agree. Our children don't really owe it to us. They didn't really ask to be brought into this world.
Now it's a valid need for you to want the child there, yes, to want that closeness, absolutely, connection, that family unity. That's not in conflict, right, with the child's need to express how they feel about, religious events and family, coming together. Because that, especially for a teenager, I know that can feel so, it's almost like you can't assert your individuality in that space because you feel like, you're just acquiescing to, the wants and desires. And that can be really hard for teenagers because they're so much trying to find their own voice and really want to speak their mind. And this isn't against you or against the traditions. It's really about them trying to figure out what matters to them and why it's important not to go and how they feel about that. So if we can just recognize some of that, again, I think we keep the conversation open, and then that will make the child naturally go, okay, I feel heard, and you know what? I want to give back to you. I'll go for an hour because this is important to you, because they felt heard and not because they've been, convinced or strong-armed into it in any way. Yeah.
Well, and teenagers are especially attuned to autonomy and friendship. And when they see something as getting in their way, they can be focused on that thing instead of focused on where they're trying to get to. And so if we dig in about our religious beliefs or our political beliefs or our recycling beliefs or our style beliefs, we can create a riff that could impact them for a lifetime, that won't give them the space they need to figure out what it is they believe and who it is they want to be. And so that's what we really want to be mindful of. And I think that's what's so lovely that you were saying, Lori, is it opens up communication, right? And that's really the goal. Sheena says snaps. Let's talk for a second about developmentally appropriate expectations. And while Lori and I are talking, or whoever's talking, feel free to write some more questions in the Q&A that we would love to speak to. I see Susie says, hi, Amy and Lori, thank you so much for this event. As a reformed spanking mom of 7, ages almost 14 to 2 weeks old, I have been enjoying the plethora of information that's been shared, and I look forward to incorporating it all into our daily lives. # knowledge is power. Thank you, heart.
Yay. Thank you, Susie. I'm thrilled that you feel supported, and I hope that you guys all continue to come back so that, we don't fall into old, because we can easily fall into habits and patterns, but, whenever you feel like, oh, I can't do this, especially when you have a house full of kids, 2 weeks, did you say 2 weeks?
Yes, 2
oh, weeks. Congratulations.
Yes.
That's a teeny tiny little munchkin. So yeah, hello, tired, right? Right there. It's hard to be so mindful in that place. So I'm really glad that you're here, and I hope that, you guys all keep coming back for
reach out for support. That's why we're here too. So Thanks for being here. So I was trying to think if we talked about developmentally appropriate expectations during the event, and I think a few times it was touched on. And the reason why it's so important in my mind is because we really want to have high expectations, right? We want the absolute best for our children so that they can succeed and they can be happy and they can know how to deal with uncomfortable emotions, and all the things, hashtag all the things, right? So whatever that success might mean for each of our individual children. And so I just wanted to talk about developmentally appropriate expectations just to help us make this shift that, yes, high expectations are great, but the shift is we also want them to be developmentally appropriate. And so that just means that we recognize that development occurs sort of sequentially, but also it's individual for each child. So what we all know that what we expect of a 4-year-old, we probably can't expect of a 2-year-old. But also what we expect of one 2-year-old, we might not be able to expect from another 2-year-old, because development is individual. And so, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk about that when we answer y'all's questions too. The other thing is that optimal learning occurs when children are in a calm place. So a little bit of stress is okay, but if we go beyond that stress into like the red zone, learning shuts down, right? It's the same for us. So I might have a lot going on and a lot of things to do. This event is a good example. I can handle a little bit of stress that makes me get everything done. But as soon as I move into this zone, I shut down and I have to go make myself some tea. I have to go for a walk. I have to turn off my computer, right? And this is the same that's true for kids. So if we're teaching and we're working with them and all of a sudden they have a meltdown or they shut down and they say, I can't do it, that's the signal that we've just moved slightly to the right, or my right. We've moved slightly to the red, and we just need to dial it back a little bit and move back to where they are. Because learning occurs when we're not frustrated. And then that frustration has to do with brain development. And so we know that brain development impacts behavior. We've talked about that for the last 10 years too, for the last 10 days. And we're so lucky, and this has really been brought to my attention, that our generation, and I've had so many guests say this, that our generation is the first generation to benefit really as parents from what we now know from brain scans and brain science. And we're lucky and we're overwhelmed, and wow, this is a lot of pressure, right? But we do know this. And so, the higher thinking brain isn't fully developed until we're in our mid to late 20s. And I halfway joke, but not really, that like Lori, probably her brain up there was developed at 25 and mine was like fully developed yesterday, or, like at 29, which was not yesterday.
Oh, not yesterday.
So, brain development happens on their own timeline, each one of us, which is why we can't punish children for behavior, because behavior occurs on their own timeline and really depends on what's going on in their brain.
Right. And
but we can teach. Go ahead, Lori.
Just coming back, it's always going to be related to something. Is this child overstressed right now? Is this child lacking skills?
Yes.
Is this child feeling disconnected and doesn't have the attachment, or some combination of all three, or one or more? So we don't have to punish behavior because we can figure it out. I feel like the brain development is like, oh my gosh, we know so much, we have to figure out what to do, but also it's so empowering.
Yeah. Because
we know that, okay, this child naturally, young children use their limbs and their big loud crying voices to tell us what they want, because they have limited language. And even when they have a lot of language, like my kid who talked forever and always, it seems, or could talk just forever, when she was upset, or when she's upset, like any human, that part of her brain shuts down. So she didn't use her language, even though she had a lot of it. And I can you hear parents of young children wanting their kids, you can't hit, you have to use your words and use your words and use your words. And
Yeah.
I feel like that just can frustrate us because we forget that, one, under stress, words aren't accessible. And then it's really hard for young children, especially, to access that without any help. That we need to co-regulate, like you mentioned, with them. We really need to get in the trenches with them.
I'm in my mid 40s, and there are times when I feel like I can't access the words. And we talked about
Right.
that even at the beginning of our talk today, that there are just times when we can't. I was trying to explain something to my daughter this morning, and I was like, I I wish I could explain this to you, but for whatever reason, I'm not able to get the words I need. For just a little bit, I need you to trust me, and we'll do this, and then hopefully I can explain it to you as we go along, because that happens.
That happens. And I know I'm
Yeah, like a
sorry.
2 or 3 year old, like you said, that's just going to happen even more, because
Yeah.
that their thinking brains just aren't even as developed as.
And when they react, when kids react to our limits, it's developmentally appropriate for them usually to not like that limit. I mean, who likes limits on our freedom, on our autonomy, on
Right.
feeling like we're being limited on getting what we need? So that's why it's so important, if we can address the need, then that limit doesn't feel so invasive and to a kid. It doesn't feel like we're taking away their power, because they realize that we recognize that they're trying to fulfill some desire to, reach a state of connection, play, whatever it may be for. If we can recognize all of that, it really does make our jobs easier. Not that it's a job again, but it makes our relationship, I think, a lot less prone to disconnection, because we go, oh, okay, I realize that this child is upset about whatever the situation is, and I can empathize with their upset without being offended that they're upset. It's not about my limit and them, disrespecting. It's really about them learning to manage what it feels like to be uncomfortable and to not have what we want. Right. We always say, they need to know that they can't get what they want. They do. And the way we show them is to show empathy for the fact that it's hard and that they don't know what it's like. And developing resiliency like that doesn't just happen like that. It's not like, I've told you to just be happy about this, and this is the limit, and there are no, just get over it. I've told you.
You get what you get, but you don't get upset. That whole thing. I'm like, no, wait, I could still get upset, right?
That is in schools. I've seen that in schools. It hurts.
It does.
And I think it's Beth over here. She loves that we're talking about the developmentally appropriate expectations, because of what she sees as a problem in America, and especially it looks like maybe she's in Virginia with the school to prison pipeline.
Yes,
and
we have that same problem here in Georgia.
Yeah, and in Philadelphia there are we have our own systemic problems with the educational system and its treatment of children who have been traumatized. Which Amy just did a whole conference on, trying to spread the information that we know about development, and especially about kids who have been traumatized and their developmental timeline, because we're punishing children for behavior that is part of their nervous system because it kept them safe and protected. So yay for another just aware mind, and somebody out there spreading that.
Yes.
Did I derail you with our...
No.
Do we have the Q&A is lit up. Do we have a question?
We have someone. So I think, so Dr. John Rich, hi, nice to see you.
Oh, hello.
He says, something that always occurs to me about positive parenting is just how much more time it takes than quicker methods like corporal punishment, shaming, ridicule, etc. If we stress and feel like we don't have the time to have a conversation with our child to make him or her feel heard, this is when there is the danger to fall back on fast reactions that don't have long-lasting affirmative power.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's why I said, when you feel that, if you can just come online and find someone to listen to the awful day that you just had, it makes going out and then having to be empathetic and listen to a smaller child or somebody else so much more easier.
Yes. Well, and that's really why we have this event. Dr. Joan Durant at the beginning said, when we get some clarity about what are our long-term goals, and she helps us see that we meet those long-term goals of having responsible, respectful, capable, compassionate children in the everyday challenges we face with our children. Like, we don't get to teach our children emotional resilience and responsibility when everything is going great. Those are just the joyful moments.
Yeah, there's no opportunity to
There's
feel stress or to develop those skills, to even
Yeah,
practice them, to make those connections to that part of the brain when we don't have that experience.
right. It's getting out of the door in the morning on time and having dinner together or not, as the case may be, and getting a bedtime routine. It's those moments that can feel like they're tripping us up as a family that are the defining moments of growing skills and creating connection. Of course, we can create connection in the joyful times too, but and then all those things about how do we regulate ourselves. We have to see those sticky places in ours that our children show us, and we have to deal with them, and we have to work on ourselves, and we have to grow. Well, we don't have to, but it is hard to parent peacefully when we aren't dealing with them and working on them. And in the long run, the quick methods don't work. They don't meet our long-term goals. So
And I feel like that, I know that we say it almost takes longer in the moment, but I have seen examples of a conflict between a parent and a child go on for much longer than it takes to sit and empathize and then work and then find a solution. Like, be willing to wait to get to the solutions before we get through all this feeling and this regulation business that we have to really do.
yes.
But that almost more often than not is quicker. I mean, yes, we can shut down a child and with fear really quick, but
Not all children.
that's the thing, not all children. So the kids who are sort of like, okay, that either fear that more or don't even get to that point because they let things roll off their back more, they sort of give those punishments and those methods. They're the ones giving it the good name, but it's not that they're good practices. It's just that they appear to have this effectiveness.
Right. Yeah. Right. And Beth says the thing is that the quicker methods don't work. They make the kids resent us, and the behavior that builds up takes a lot more time in the long run. Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, again, why you're doing all of these webinars, to help just keep reaffirming that. I think the more that parents hear that and they see it, it's like, oh, I hear it once, and then maybe I see it once and it sticks, but then I listen to another talk and then I see something different in my child, or I feel differently. I recognize a connection, then I watch one more talk. So it's never just about knowing it and then living it automatically. It's just like with our kids, we have to just keep practicing these skills.
Right. And hearing and seeing. I think that's what's so powerful about this event is it's not me, right? It's you coming on and having this conversation, and multiple conversations, by the way. Thank you. And, we've had all these voices that come together to be on here with me, and a few people who are doing them on their own. And, we have to hear messages from different people and different ways with different voice inflections and feelings. And experiences. And that's really what helps us. I've had to read and hear and listen to multiple voices for things.
Especially when you're parenting with a partner that may or may not be on the same page. Even if you're on the same page, the same speakers and people that focus on different information, they're not all going to resonate in the same way for you as they are for your partner, and vice versa. So just having all of these voices, like you said, is just, I think, awesome for people. It just speaks to so many different and you may think, oh, my partner's resistant, they didn't like this talk, they thought it was a bunch of hooey and all this. And then, oh, maybe there's, your partner better, maybe you recognize, oh, this might be a better fit for them, listening to this information because I know this is something that they really care about or that really touches them in a different way.
It's true, right? Seeing like helping our loved ones hear the message in different ways.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but that is true. Yeah.
So Beth says, right now, this way is counterintuitive to the way most of us were raised. It's my hope that as more of us learn this and apply it, this will become natural. And as it is applied from birth, there will be no thought at all of it taking longer. It will just be natural. Definitely. Yeah. I think that, yeah. And I know adults that were raised this way with, and they're in their 40s and 50s, and their children don't even understand what it's like. And they I mean, not that they have a hard time, the parents have a hard time, just say it's one generation removed from more harsh parenting. It's amazing the difference in perspective from people who have been raised with, and not that even people that were parented more harshly didn't have any empathy, but there are parents who didn't use any punishment with their kids. And I just find that amazing because I grew up with so much punishment.
Yeah.
But it really is amazing when they stepped outside of that bubble of their family to recognize how different it could be.
Right.
So we would just, it really would just be natural, to our children when they feel that.
I'll be curious. Go ahead. Sorry.
They just, the benefits to their emotional intelligence, that's what we're really talking about, right? Because it's suddenly, oh, I'm not upset with this. I don't get so upset when I see a child upset because I know that's just a child upset. Like it's just a different mindset. Take offense to it in the way that we do.
I will sometimes affirm my daughter in some way, and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know that," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, good, right?" Like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah, it just becomes part of them. They don't have doubts about how they feel or what, and not that they don't feel it, and not that discomfort isn't, frustrating or doesn't feel good, but they just know themselves so much. I mean, I noticed the same thing in my daughter, that of what you're saying about yours. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of amazing. I had such a different experience.
Yes, no, I did too. I'm growing right along with my daughter, and well, now I'm just trying to keep up. But
so you found a question?
I did. I picked this question up from a parenting group. She says she's dealing with a strong-willed 9-year-old girl that treats her younger brother poorly all the time. When he asks her questions, her tone sounds hateful, and it drives me crazy. He thinks she hung the moon, and it hurts me to see her treat him this way. You can see it in his eyes that it makes him feel awful too. Help.
How old is the little brother? Do we know? We don't know.
We don't know. I'll ask too.
This one is one, again, any kid that's showing aggression or anger is holding in stuff. Whether it's the ability to say, I need space and I don't want my little brother in my room. And so we find that we can have peaceful interactions as long as he's kept from her private things. Or this may be a consistent, just sort of like a long drawn out thing where she feels something where maybe her brother is getting more attention, more respect, more something, and there's a connection challenge, and she really needs to be brought back into this fold to say you're important too and you matter too. There's so many challenge, and it could just be 9-year-olds, you know, developmentally, again, needing maybe some privacy. But if it's all the time, like every interaction, that's very different than if it's just like after school, you know, where frustrations can run high. So I mean, like, it's a hateful tone in this moment of stress. We can go in and deal with that and recognize, I know you were really angry, your brother went in and he moved, you know, your game, and you had that all set up for your friends, right? So we acknowledge the situation, and I know that you were frustrated. We can still set the limit, you know, hitting, or what was it? It was the tone. I'm calling him names, whatever it is. I heard that you were really angry. That's not a way to, you know, that's not going to help him maybe change that. What are some other ways that we can let him know that this is off limits? You know, we can talk through that challenge. But if it's something where she feels like it's her own self-worth or her place in the family that she's questioning or feeling unsafe about, or you know, just insecure about, that's a different conversation.
Right. I love that you broke it up, Lori, because it's true. We want to empower her if the problem is that she needs more privacy or space, or wants to have her things be her own things. Empowering her with tools and having that proactive conversation that they can then have with the brother. But nurturing the sibling relationship in the same way that that this parenting paradigm may be different for us, nurturing that sibling relationship may be different for us too. I know my brother and I were at odds, to say the least.
I love the way you put that. You have great words.
There were lots of fisticuffs and shouting. So it was hard. He was older than me, and I was lucky to be very fast and could outrun him. But being caught was not fun. And so I think a lot of us were raised in that way, where they let us duke it out and fight it out, and y'all figure it out and go do your thing and get away from me and stay out of my hair, right? But what we want is to nurture that sibling relationship, which means that we have to stop being judge and jury and let them come together and talk. And we might have to hold that space where we go in and we might say, I hear a lot of anger in the voices, and anger in the voices is okay. That happens. Let's talk about what's going on, and I'm going to hold the space for y'all while y'all each have an opportunity to say what you need to say. But we're going to use I statements. I feel angry when someone takes my things. I feel sad when someone calls me names. I feel worried when someone goes into my room, right? And so we help them develop this language. We help them say their piece all the way. And then we say, what do y'all want to do? We're not going in and saying, Addie is right and Stella is wrong and y'all need to apologize. We say, what do y'all want to do? Right? Because when we take sides, we are inserting ourselves into their relationship instead of nurturing them. And I think that we have to figure out how to step out, and we nurture our relationship with each one of them individually. And I think it's important too to find ways that we can all play together. That can be really nurturing.
I love it.
Something everyone enjoys. Go ahead, Lori.
I just love that you brought up the worry. I feel worried when people come into my space or whatever, because I don't think that we recognize that as a real fear with kids. And my daughter used to get very upset when and she's an only child, and people will say, oh, it's just because she's an only child and she doesn't know how to share. And it's like, no, she can share perfectly fine when she's out of her space. But when people came into her space, she would get so anxious about them being in her room and touching, and are they going to break something, and do they know how to use it? And her mind would just overthink it. And there was no amount of me saying, you have to share, this is our family, when you go to their house they share with us, and there's no logic that can help calm worry and anxiety like that, but really validating that it's real and helping give the child words to that, I just think is a really important, I think it's missed sometimes. So I was just glad that you used that example to say that I feel worried when, people go into my room, because it really does happen and we might miss it. And we think that pushing or being harsh with the tone, just because little brother walked in the room, we think that's an overreaction. And we think that should be, and we can feel like that. We can say your tone of voice surprised me.
Right.
I was surprised when I heard that. I want to hear more about what just happened. So much more inviting and safe. Kids, when we say things like that, kids feel safe. And when they feel safe, they can start to calm down and express themselves much better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we can model that. Like, I can certainly have an angry tone sometimes, and sometimes I'll notice it, or my daughter will notice it for me, and I'll say, you're right. Let me get to a place where I might still feel angry, but I'm also feeling more calm about it. So I can talk about it in a way that doesn't feel threatening, right? And so those are words we can empower our children with. What's a way you can talk to your brother that he can hear you? Because when you sound threatening, he's going to feel defensive and he's not going to be able to hear you.
Yeah. And he doesn't understand.
No.
It's hard for us to understand what can help.
Right.
I mean, I've said that to my kid many times. Like, I want to help you, but I don't understand when you're when you're saying these things or whatever the situation is, just so that she knows, like, I get that you're saying it, but I want to help. So when you're ready, I'm here to listen. Yeah. Like, not forcing her to come up with a new answer right away.
Right. Yes.
Is important too.
Yeah, sometimes when I say that, my daughter will get irritated with me, right? And then I'll just be like, I just want you to know. And then later, when she's feeling more calm, she can circle back around. Okay, let me say it again this way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when they're so wound up, it's hard to make sense of what's going on. Mm. And my daughter is like yours, that she's very verbal. But I'm verbal too, and my brain will just go offline.
Exactly. And some of us are better when we write things down, right? Because we have thoughts and that we're able to craft into words. So giving kids time and not expecting them to sort of come up with answers and solutions right away, letting kids draw out solutions or draw out their feelings is also, I know we were talking about developmentally appropriate. So just on that, let's tie up that loose end. If we have little kids that, we might say, well, they don't ever respond when I try to validate feelings or figure out what it is. So that's when we want to maybe find some nonverbal ways to connect. Using colors and shapes or and things that we draw, or lots of different ways. I think we have to wrap up, so we don't have time to get too much into it. But there's ways to connect with kids to find out what's going on and to validate for them without always having to talk.
Yes. When we are having some big emotions here, that's sometimes one of the first things. Sometimes that's exactly what we do, is we get our hands in something like this, because sensory things can be so regulating. We will get crayons out and color, or we will draw those mandala coloring books.
Oh, I love those, yeah.
Sometimes you can just really get in a nice co-regulating groove together, coloring a page together. And those feel really good. I also like this. I just happen to have these around me all the time. This is also super helpful. Is that right side up?
Thinking putty, yeah.
Yeah. And there's like 100 different kinds.
And there's so many different things. My daughter, just after our Tuesday talk, my daughter got a present from someone. She had a birthday recently, and it feels like it's actually filled with like cornstarch. And she broke it, or I'd have it on screen. I meant to bring it because she punctured it with her nail when she was pressing on it so hard. But it's like a balloon. Oh. And it has a little face with fuzzy hair on top. And she's been squeezing it for 3 days.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, this is the thinking putty, and it's so satisfying.
That's the word that my daughter uses too. Whenever she's getting some real sensory relief, that's what she said. She's like, it's so satisfying.
So sad.
So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have one more question, but I'm noticing we have about 9 more minutes.
Oh, excuse my yawn. I'm so sorry. It's
If
not
anyone
because
here wants to ask a question, feel free, and we'll go to your question instead. But this is from the online community. What's the best way to help a perfectionist 6-year-old? He only wants to try something if he's already really good at it. He says things like, I'm just the worst in the entire universe when it's something new.
I know you've got words for this one, Amy. I know I'm supposed to be the words person, but I feel like you just have the best, because we really want to validate that it's hard and it's frustrating and that we want it to be, that the child wants it. I don't think there's anything wrong with perfectionism necessarily unless we let it take over. Right? Unless we get no support and we never learn to deal with it, and then it becomes all consuming. But right now, you know, that desire to make it just the way we had in our mind, I can see how that would be so important and so frustrating when it doesn't come out that way.
Yes.
That's what I would say. Like, because I don't want to move them out of their perfectionist, you know, or that perfectionism, because that's really, I think, something that comes along with sensitivity. You know, kids who are really perceptive, really aware, they see everything and they see all the detail and the big picture of it, and they want it to be just the way it, you know, they envisioned in their mind. And I don't think we have to take that away from them by saying, you know, oh, well, you tried your hardest. And well, that's kind of defeating, you know, like they don't really want to. I know we have good intentions behind that, but I would just go with, you know, validating how we really wanted to achieve what we thought it was going to look like. That was really important to us too.
I feel the same. I think when children struggle to get started on something because they're not good at it, I think validating is exactly where we start, because our expectations have to be developmentally appropriate. If they feel too frustrated to get started, then they are too frustrated to get started.
Yeah.
And so we help them get regulated by validating it. Like, I'm just the worst in the universe, right? He says that, and you say, this is really hard. I'm sorry it feels so hard. What can I do to help? Anything? And then you just listen. No, I'm just the worst. I just hate it. I'm not good at it. Oh, right?
Yeah.
And you just let him. And when he gets it out, he frees himself to be in a space where maybe he tries it just a little bit. Maybe he really works hard to get that thinking putty lid off, or whatever it is that's really hard.
You know, making the perfect circle.
Right.
Just because a kid wants to figure out how to, and every circle they make looks more like an oval and they keep ripping it up.
Yeah. And
right? We don't say, oh, this,
it across.
Right. And we don't need to try to say, oh, but this circle was fine. Look at it. We don't need to try to discount. Because I think that's what kids are really, and as humans, that's all we really want to know. We don't need anybody to necessarily always talk us out of it or bring us to a new state. We just want someone to say, how you're feeling right now is okay. It's okay. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to not want to start because it feels too scary. And just saying it's okay to feel that doesn't mean that we don't go anywhere in 2 minutes when we move through that, or 5 minutes, or 15 minutes.
Right.
Doesn't mean we don't move to the next step, but just that this is where we are right now. I'm going to meet you right here. Not try to pull you over ahead where, you know, where it doesn't matter and don't worry and all of that, and just going to meet you in the worry.
Right. Right.
Because I've been worried.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be talked out of it or convinced. I want someone to believe I can do it and to not try to fix it for me.
Right.
Because if I start something, I probably have a pretty good idea that I can do it, at least a little bit. So, well, I think that's all we have time for.
I think that was lovely, though.
I do too.
Did you guys have fun? We have a bunch of attendees. I'm so happy.
We
They didn't say
did.
much, but
I
hi, you
know.
guys.
I know. Hi, everybody. Yeah. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Lori. As always, you're amazing.
It's because you're amazing, Amy. You know that. We
We do well
we
together.
do really well together. Yeah.
We have some exciting projects on the horizon, which we won't share with y'all, but they are coming.
Not just yet, but
No.
yeah, exciting stuff after
Yeah.
your vacation.
Yeah, please. I can't. I'm taking a break immediately.
Yeah.